I caught my husband kissing my mother at my dad's funeral. There, I said it. That's the sentence I never imagined would define my life, but here we are. You'd think the weirdest part of the day would be my cousin Travis singing Livin' on a Prayer during the service because Dad loved classic rock. But no, that was merely the appetizer. The real course of emotional indigestion came later, and it tasted like betrayal with a side of what the actual hell. The church was cold. Not in the physical sense, the air conditioning was doing its usual passive-aggressive hum, but in that emotional way where no one quite knows what to say, so they stick to weather, awkward hugs, and bad coffee. Dad lay in the coffin up front, stiff in the same navy suit he wore to my wedding. He'd hated ceremonies, said they were for people who liked pretending things mattered. Irony alert, now here we were, all pretending this funeral meant something to him. Mom, Lynn, sat at the front like a damn queen. Back straight, legs crossed at the ankle, not a smudge on her red lipstick. Red lipstick at a funeral. I mean, sure, she looked stunning for 55, but still, it wasn't a fashion show. It was the burial of her husband of 32 years. Eric, my husband, sat beside me. Technically. Emotionally, he was somewhere else, somewhere far more digital. He kept glancing at his phone like he was waiting for urgent stock updates or a message from NASA. I leaned toward him once and whispered, "Your screen won't tell you how to mourn." He smiled politely. The kind of smile you give your boss when they make a bad joke. I should have known then. After the service, we moved to a smaller room in the church's back wing for the celebration of life. What a stupid phrase. Celebrating a man who barely celebrated birthdays, let alone life. People milled around awkwardly, clutching paper plates of soggy finger food and trying to look meaningfully sad. I watched Mom glide between groups like a hostess at a cocktail party. She laughed at something my uncle said. Her hand lingered a second too long on his shoulder. I stared. "Are you okay?" Eric asked, coming up behind me. He touched the small of my back, but it didn't feel like comfort. It felt like choreography. I nodded. "Sure. Just watching the show?" He followed my gaze to my mother and let out a short exhale that might have been a laugh, might have been a grunt. Then our eyes met for a second, mine full of confusion, his full of something unreadable, and he looked away. And that's when it hit me. Not the kiss. Not yet. But something was off. Eric hadn't really looked at me all day. Not like a husband. Not even like a friend. But he'd looked at her. Oh, he had. Once, twice, no more. Glances that carried a weight I couldn't name yet. Not grief. Not shared mourning. Something more intimate. Familiar. Almost affectionate. I took a sip of lukewarm white wine, and the thought came uninvited, like a drunk guest at a wake. They've been around each other too much lately, haven't they? But I pushed it down. My brain was fragile, brittle. My dad had just died. My mom was probably just being weird. And Eric? He was tired, distracted, that's all. I thought the weirdest thing today would be my cousin singing Bon Jovi at the funeral. I was wrong. Back at my parents' house, the smell of overcooked lasagna and reheated casseroles clung to every surface like a bad memory. Everyone was eating, or pretending to. That's what people do at these post-funeral things. They gather in someone's too bright dining room, load their paper plates with food they don't want, and talk about anything but the person who just died. It's a performance, really, one I'd watched since I was a kid. I hated these family gatherings growing up. Always the same. Someone brought Jell-O with marshmallows, someone got drunk too early, and my mother pretended everything was perfectly under control while simultaneously losing her mind behind closed doors. She loved appearances. Still does. Smile, Samantha. She used to whisper through gritted teeth. You don't want people thinking something's wrong. Well, guess what, Mom? Something's very, very wrong. I leaned against the kitchen doorway, sipping wine that tasted like regret and grape juice, and watched the crowd buzz around me. Grief had turned into gossip, and people were starting to leave. I could hear laughter echoing from the kitchen, not just any laughter. Her laugh, sharp, precise, like a wine glass about to crack. And then his. Eric's laugh. What the hell? I tilted my head and peeked inside the kitchen. There they were. My husband and my mother, alone. Huddled by the fridge like teenagers skipping class. She said something and he chuckled, actually chuckled. Then she swatted his arm like they were sharing an inside joke. I blinked. Okay, weird. But maybe they were just bonding? Grief bonding. That's a thing, right? I downed the rest of my wine and was about to refill when I felt a tap on my elbow. Hey, Jenna, my oldest friend, practically family, she gave me that look. You know, the one women give each other when something's off. What? I asked too quickly. She leaned in. You're not gonna like this, but I just saw your mom and Eric come out of the pantry. Together. I froze. The pantry? She nodded. Yeah, it was weird. They looked startled, like I caught them doing something they shouldn't. My stomach nodded. Maybe they were looking for napkins. In the dark? Jenna raised an eyebrow. I forced a laugh. You're being dramatic. She didn't smile. I turned away, heart thudding. They don't even like each other, I reminded myself. Eric always said my mother made him feel like a teenage boy being interviewed by the school principal. And Mom? Well, she called him a bit stiff behind his back and once referred to him as a safe choice. So why were they laughing in the kitchen? Why were they whispering in the pantry? I poured another glass of wine because apparently my coping mechanism is Cabernet. They were probably just trying to make peace. That's all. Shared trauma, bonding, napkins, and yet something tugged at the back of my mind, persistent and cold, like the first shiver before you realize the storm's coming. I sipped my wine, and I ignored it. They say grief comes in waves, that it crashes over you when you least expect it. But what they don't tell you is that sometimes it doesn't come at all, just an eerie, empty calm. Like your brain knows you should be sad, but your heart didn't get the memo. That's how I felt sitting on the back porch of my parents' house, nursing my third glass of wine and watching ants crawl across the deck. The thing is, I wasn't thinking about my dad. I was thinking about Eric, about us. We met 8 years ago, at a coffee shop of all places. So cliche it hurts. He ordered a black coffee, no cream, no sugar, and then politely told the barista her shoelace was untied. I remember thinking, who even notices that? But that was Eric, observant, soft-spoken, and impossibly polite. He wasn't flashy, not the type to sweep you off your feet, but he was kind, reliable, steady. After a string of emotionally unavailable disasters, he felt like solid ground. So when he proposed, I said yes without hesitation. In the beginning, it was easy, natural. And then life happened. Work stress, mortgage payments. A routine that slowly wrapped itself around us like plastic wrap. Clear, suffocating, hard to see until you're gasping. Still, I thought we were okay. I thought we were fine. But maybe that was the problem. Fine is the cousin of numb. And then there was my mother. She'd always had a sharp tongue and a sharper wardrobe. People called her striking. But she never just walked into a room. She arrived. Perfumed, poised, polished. She liked to test people. See what they were made of. Especially men. When she met Eric, she gave him the once-over like a car she might lease for a few years, not buy. Later that night, over a glass of Chardonnay, she said, "If I were 20 years younger..." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. I laughed it off at the time. Thought it was just another one of her inappropriate little flirts. But over the years, I noticed things. How she'd accidentally brush against him in the kitchen. How she'd call him to help fix things around her house, even though we literally lived 10 minutes away and she could have called a handyman. Eric never complained, said he was just being helpful, said she was lonely after Dad started getting sick. I believed him. But now I can't stop thinking about all those moments. The pantry, the glances, the fact that he hadn't touched me in weeks. And the worst part, it's not just that I'm mad at them. I'm mad at myself for not seeing it, for drifting so far from him that I didn't even notice we were standing on opposite sides of a cracked foundation, for drifting so far from myself. I used to be funny, creative, spontaneous. Now I'm the woman who drinks wine at funerals and pretends pantry whispers are just grief bonding. I took a long breath and looked up at the sky. The stars were just starting to appear, faint and scattered like the pieces of a life I didn't quite recognize anymore. I thought, is this what rock bottom feels like? Then I thought, no, this is the warning shot. The real fall hadn't even started yet. I couldn't find Eric. One moment he was politely thanking Aunt Gloria for her lukewarm lasagna, and the next, gone. I figured he'd stepped outside for air, maybe even a smoke. He quit 3 years ago, but funerals have a way of pulling bad habits out of hiding. I wandered through the house, passing half-empty wine glasses and plastic plates balanced on end tables. The usual post-funeral awkwardness buzzed faintly in the air. Too many people pretending to be somber, no one sure if they were allowed to laugh yet. The back door creaked as I pushed it open. I stepped onto the tiled sunroom, the solarium, as my mother insisted on calling it. A glass-walled space meant for sipping coffee and pretending to read European novels. It was quiet there, too quiet. Then I saw them. Through the soft reflection of the glass, lit by the silver moonlight leaking in from outside, I saw Eric, holding her, my mother. His hands were on her waist, familiar, gentle. Her fingers touched the side of his face the way I once did, slowly, like memorizing something precious. And then they kissed. Not a nervous, impulsive kiss, not a mistake. A real kiss, slow, long, eyes closed, like they were the only two people left in the world. Like the house behind them wasn't full of grieving relatives and tuna casserole. Like I didn't exist, I didn't move, couldn't. My brain tried to catch up with what my eyes were seeing. I thought maybe I had imagined it. Maybe it was someone else. Maybe this was just one of those weird dreams where you show up to school naked and Freud shows up to lecture you. But it was real. The glass between us was cold against my fingers as I leaned forward, watching them like a ghost in my own life. They finally pulled apart. She smiled. He whispered something I couldn't hear, and just like that, the world cracked open under my feet. I didn't storm in, didn't scream, didn't cry. I walked away, silently, slowly, in a trance. Back through the hallway, past the photos of birthdays and Christmases, past the smell of reheated ham and the laughter of distant cousins. Into the bathroom where I locked the door, sat on the closed toilet lid, and stared at the tile floor. My heart wasn't racing. It was hammering. My ears rang like a fire alarm I couldn't shut off. But no tears came. Just one thought, looping over and over in my head like a cursed lullaby. I don't know what broke me more, the betrayal or the calmness of that kiss. The kitchen smelled like burnt toast and denial. Sunlight spilled through the windows in cruel golden streaks, too bright for how hollow I felt. My mother stood by the stove, stirring her black coffee like she was hosting a brunch, not the aftermath of a personal apocalypse. She didn't even look up when I entered. I walked straight to the counter and placed both hands on it to keep them from shaking. My throat burned from the words I'd rehearsed all night, but when I finally spoke, my voice came out cold. "Did you sleep with my husband?" She didn't flinch, didn't gasp, didn't even blink. Instead, she set her spoon down, slowly turned toward me, and sipped her coffee like she had all the time in the world. Then she said, with the calm of someone discussing the weather, "Not that it's any of your business, but yes." Just like that. Yes, yes. Like it was some minor footnote in her glamorous life. Like it was a decision on whether to order the fish or the chicken. I stared at her, jaw slack. She sighed, like I was being dramatic. "It was a long time ago, Samantha. And I didn't mean for it to happen. I didn't want to fall in love with him." My ears buzzed. "Fall in? Are you kidding me?" She set her cup down, finally meeting my eyes. "You don't understand. Eric, he saw me, in a way your father never did. We connected, emotionally, intellectually. I felt alive again. I felt sick. The room was spinning. "You're my mother," I said, barely above a whisper. "And he's my husband." She looked at me like I was the unreasonable one. "Samantha, life is complicated. People are complicated. I didn't plan this." My hands were trembling. I clenched them into fists, nails biting into my palms. When did this start?" Her silence was all the answer I needed. "Years." She nodded slowly. "It's been a while, but it's over now. He chose you, didn't he? We both made our peace with that." A laugh escaped me, bitter and shaky. "Peace? You call that peace?" And then she said something that made the air leave my lungs. "Your father knew?" I froze. "What?" She folded her arms. "Not everything, but enough. He suspected. He wasn't stupid. He chose to look the other way." I couldn't breathe. I pressed my hand to my chest, trying to calm the storm inside me, but it was no use. The betrayal was everywhere. In the walls of this kitchen, in every memory, in every family dinner, in the silence of my father, In the kiss I watched with my own eyes, tears spilled down before I could stop them. "You broke everything," I whispered. "All of you." But she just stood there, expression unreadable, as if I were the one being unreasonable, as if pain were something I needed to get over, like a phase. I walked out of the kitchen, not because I was finished, but because if I stayed, I might never come back. I didn't expect him to show up so soon. It was late afternoon when I heard the knock on the door. I knew who it was before I even opened it. The nervous shuffle of feet, the hesitant cough. Eric. His face was a study in guilt and something else. Maybe regret, maybe just fear. He looked like a kid who'd been caught raiding the candy jar, hands sticky, trying to play innocent. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice too soft, like it was a request for permission instead of a statement. I didn't let him in immediately. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, looking at him like he was an alien from another planet. Maybe he was. Maybe he'd never really been human to me. He finally stepped inside, eyes shifting, awkward, but still that same smile, the one he always used when he thought he could talk his way out of anything. "You look upset," he said, as if that were somehow a revelation. "Can we sit?" I didn't respond. Instead, I stepped aside and let him enter. I was too tired to argue, too tired to scream. I just wanted the truth, even if it would burn me alive. We sat down in the living room, the silence between us thick and heavy. He shifted on the couch, not meeting my eyes. His hands kept fidgeting, like he was trying to keep his cool, but it wasn't working. "Sam," he started, his voice low, This is not what you think. You have to understand, Don't," I cut him off, my voice sharp and cold. "Don't try to tell me that I don't understand. I know exactly what I saw." He let out a slow breath. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this. It wasn't planned." I laughed bitterly. Of course it wasn't. Because everything in our marriage has been so spontaneous, right? I can't even begin to count the number of times you've said you wanted to fix things. You wanted more from me, but you didn't want me. He shifted again, visibly uncomfortable. "It's not like that, Sam. You've been distant for a long time. You and me, we stopped connecting. I needed someone, and your mom." "Stop," I interrupted, my voice trembling with fury now. "You're going to blame me for this? For what you did?" He tried to defend himself, eyes wide, but his words tumbled out in a mess of justifications. She was there, and she understood. She got it. Your dad was never there for her. He was distant. And your mom, My mother?" I interrupted again, my heart pounding in my chest. "You're telling me you couldn't keep it in your pants for even 5 minutes? You couldn't have any respect. And now you want to turn my mom into some sort of victim?" Eric looked down, guilt weighing him down. "I didn't want this to hurt you. I didn't. But Sam, no. You didn't want it to hurt you," I snapped. "You're not sorry for me. You're sorry because you got caught." His eyes flicked to me, and I saw the truth in them, sharp as glass. He was afraid. Not of my pain, not of what he'd done to me. No, he was afraid of the consequences, of losing everything. I stood up abruptly, the anger bubbling to the surface. "You didn't just cheat," I said, my voice low and steady, but full of venom. "You chose the one woman who gave birth to me. That's a whole new category of disgusting." Eric's face paled. The room was silent for a long moment, and I could almost hear the sound of his thoughts, scrambling, trying to figure out what to say, how to fix it. But there was nothing left to fix. I turned away from him, and with the last shred of dignity I had, I walked out of the room. The evening dragged on. The house was filled with that hollow, uncomfortable energy, like the silence you feel after someone said something they can't take back. The whispers between family members were a dull buzz in the background, but no one dared speak too loudly. Everyone seemed to be avoiding eye contact, all of them pretending this wasn't happening. But I wasn't going to pretend anymore. I stood up from the table, my legs a little unsteady from the wine, but I knew this was the moment. I could feel the words bubbling in my throat, like acid, ready to burn through the entire room. "I want to raise a glass to my father," I said, my voice cutting through the tension like a knife. I paused, taking a breath, letting the room fall silent, all eyes on me. While he was alive, his wife and my husband were screwing behind his back. For a moment, everything stopped. The air itself seemed to freeze. Someone dropped a fork. the sharp clang of metal against the floor shattering the stillness. I heard a few stifled coughs, a gasp from someone who probably didn't know how to react, and then the room fell into complete, stunned silence. I looked straight at my mother. Her face went pale, her lips trembling. She opened her mouth to speak, but I didn't give her the chance. "You," I said, pointing directly at her, "have no excuse. None." She blinked, trying to gather herself. She started to open her mouth, her voice shaky. "Samantha, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I interrupted, my voice sharp as glass. "You knew, didn't you? All these years you knew. And you were still here, playing the grieving wife, while you were sleeping with the one person who's supposed to have my back. My husband." My mother's face twisted in something close to guilt, but I wasn't having it. Eric was standing across the room, looking like he was about to say something, probably some half-baked apology that wouldn't mean a damn thing. But I didn't give him the satisfaction. "I really hope it was worth it," I said, taking a long drink from my glass, my fingers trembling just a little. "Because now you both have nothing, not even my forgiveness." With that, I turned on my heel, my heels clicking sharply against the hardwood floor. I could feel the tension in the air, thick enough to suffocate someone. But I didn't care anymore. Jenna followed me out, her footsteps light and quick behind mine. "Sam, are you okay?" she asked, her voice gentle but full of concern as we walked through the hallway. "I will be," I said, my voice raw but steady. "They don't get to have the last word. They don't get to ruin everything." Jenna was silent for a moment, then sighed, her hand resting on my shoulder. "I'm so sorry you have to go through this. But you're strong. You'll get through it." I nodded, but the weight of everything was still pressing down on me. I didn't know how I would get through it, but I was done playing their game. The door slammed behind us as we left, and for the first time that night, the air felt a little lighter. A month had passed since the funeral. A month since everything exploded into a million pieces, and I was still picking through the rubble. I'd gotten used to the quiet now. I'd learned to embrace it, even though it had felt suffocating at first. My apartment, once just a place to sleep, had become my sanctuary. It was mine, no one else's. And it was the first time in my life that I didn't have to share it with anyone. I'd adopted a cat, a grumpy, half-blind tabby with a serious attitude problem. His name was Grumpy. Very original, I know, but he was perfect for me. He didn't ask questions. He didn't try to fix me. He just sat there, judging me with his green eyes, occasionally nuzzling my leg when he wanted food. It was nice. And the therapy sessions, well, they were a different kind of experience. I never expected to enjoy talking about my feelings, but when the therapist asked me how I was feeling, I couldn't stop laughing at the absurdity of it all. I caught my husband kissing my mother, I had said in one of my sessions, laughing so hard that the therapist probably thought I was losing my mind. Like, how do you even begin to process that? But here I was, processing it, trying to put the shattered pieces of my heart back together. There were days when the weight of everything felt too much, but there were also moments of relief, of clarity, moments when I realized I didn't have to carry the baggage of their betrayal anymore. I didn't have to care what they thought, what they did, or how they tried to justify themselves. The freedom, it was a strange kind of feeling. It was both liberating and lonely, but at least I was free. Then came Jenna. "Guess what?" she said one night, barging into my apartment without knocking, as usual. "I signed you up for a blind date." I raised an eyebrow at her. "You what?" She grinned, all too pleased with herself. "It's time, Sam. You need to get back out there, meet someone new." I stared at her, trying to decide whether to laugh or strangle her. I may have trust issues now, but at least I'm not dating my daughter's husband. Jenna laughed, shaking her head. "You'll figure it out, trust me. You're stronger than you think." I rolled my eyes. "Thanks for the vote of confidence. I'll just try not to get too attached to anyone who might be sleeping with my mother, okay?" She paused, considering. Fair point. It was ridiculous, the whole thing. The fact that I had to rebuild my life from scratch. The fact that I was dealing with so much pain that I never thought I'd survive. The fact that I'd even considered getting back into the world of dating. But there was a certain relief in laughing at it all. And if I could laugh, then maybe, just maybe, I was starting to heal. 1 year later. It felt strange to say that. It had been a full year since everything fell apart. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the chaos. Time had passed in a blur, but somehow I had made it through. I glanced out the window of my new apartment, the one I'd moved into a few months ago, and let out a breath. The city outside was as busy as ever, people rushing around, lives full of their own stories, struggles, and triumphs. It was a reminder that life didn't stop, even when yours seemed to fall apart. Lynn and Eric, they were still together. But if I'm being honest, it didn't look like things had improved for them. I didn't know much about their relationship now. I didn't want to. The last time I saw them, at some family event that I had to attend for the sake of being civil, there was this hollow, forced tension between them. They looked like two people who were desperately clinging to a life raft that was slowly sinking. Eric had tried to reach out to me a few times, but I had no interest in hearing his excuses. He had made his choices, and I had made mine. And as for Lynn, she'd tried to play the victim, as always. She'd sent me some vague texts about how it wasn't what it seemed and how she was just trying to find happiness. I'd ignored them, all of them. I wasn't angry anymore. I was past that. There were no more tears left to cry, no more rage to burn. I had finally found the space to breathe, and I wasn't going to let anyone take that from me. As for me, well, I was living a life I never expected to have, but one that was slowly starting to make sense. I worked at a book club now, a place where I got to recommend novels, discuss them with others, and help people escape their own realities. But the best part? Helping women. Women who, like me, had been betrayed, abandoned, or lost. I'd become a mentor of sorts, guiding them through their own emotional storms. I'd become the support system I once needed, helping others rebuild when they thought they couldn't. I was also seeing someone new. His name was Jake, and he was, well, normal. No secrets, no surprises. He didn't try to fix me or make me forget the past. We were just two people who enjoyed each other's company. He was steady, and for now, that was all I needed. I had learned to embrace my solitude, to take care of myself in ways I'd never known how to before. There were still days when I missed the idea of a family, of having someone to lean on, but I had learned that I could be enough for myself. I was healing, and that was the most important thing. As I finished up my latest book recommendation for the club's newsletter, I glanced at the calendar. 1 year, 1 full year since everything changed. The weight of it all hit me, but instead of feeling like I was sinking, I realized I was standing tall. I wasn't broken anymore. I was free. I took a deep breath and smiled to myself. Turns out losing your husband, your mother, and your father all at once just might be the best thing that ever happened to you.